Hey, welcome to Networking Star. I am your host, Jeffery Boyle, and here on Networking Star, I interview some of the coolest entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and people that just help us want to have, be, and do more in life. I've got one of those guys with me today, Anthony Trucks. He is a motivational speaker. He's a former NFL player, man of faith, the father and author of Identity Shift. Thanks for being with me, Anthony.
Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
So we were just talking just a little bit as you're hopping on. You're one of 11 kids, and then you've got 3 kids yourself. You've had a very successful athletic career, and now you've kind of made that shift. And I think that's kind of your mantra of making that shift. Explain a little bit about the idea of shift and how it's so important in life, business, and just success.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all know the whole age-old concept of sometimes a simple shift in trajectory takes you to a brand new place in life. And so a lot of us are going at the pace we're going, and we want more. I mean, everybody I seem to know wants something more. And I found that in order to get to that next level, you have to make some kind of shift. And it's not just a shift in habits and activities and thoughts. It's usually a shift at your core, which is your identity. And so I tell people, I do not believe you can attain or sustain a life above your current identity. And so the work I do is helping you become the person capable of having the life you desire. And that's small shifts to make a big shift in the far run.
You know, I love sports. You know, I love the sports metaphors. And even lately, you've seen some of these documentaries. Netflix has a really cool one, Quarterback, and they've done some of these untold ones. And you played college sports at Oregon, so that's a big time program. And then, of course, you played in the NFL. What did you see the difference? Because, you know, we hear these stories of these super gifted athletes that really never amount to much. And then you have some of these guys that may not have as much talent that accomplish spectacular things. What's really the difference that you saw in those guys and how they were able to really excel no matter what their talent level was?
Yeah, well, it's an identity thing, right? The identity is interesting because it's not this random, like arbitrary, like philosophical thing. It's actually, if you want to call it conceptually, but also it's who you are when you aren't thinking about who you are. It's your habits, it's your actions, it's your framing, it's your perspectives. At a neurological and psychological level, it's also a wiring from past experiences. I've done something, I've had this happen, I'm wired now a certain way from the experience, so I do something different. And so because of that, I've noticed the differentiation is those who are world-class athletes, let's call it world-class, they have the ability to, even when they're younger and building up, they can lean into something and give it all of their heart and soul and passion. It's the only thing that matters on planet Earth to them. And there are a lot of people that do have great talent, great physical abilities when they're younger. And all of a sudden, this guy who wasn't the fastest, wasn't the biggest, all of a sudden he's a monster. And it's because some part of his identity goes, I show up and I work at a crazy high level. And so over time, that person, they do get as fast as that other kid was. They do get as strong as the other kid was. They do get as gifted as the other kid was. And now they surpass that kid, because also when that kid meets the one who's talented, who didn't do the work, there's a little moment that takes place. It's me versus the opposition. And in my head, one of us has to win on this football field, this basketball court, whatever it is. And here's the mentality. I have done too much work in the dark to lose in the light. I did the reps. I sold out. I gave everything I could. So you do not get to beat me right now. And when you ask what the separation is at every level, it's that. It just becomes harder at the higher level, right? So I'm in high school. The kid who was just hanging out with girlfriends and going playing video game stuff, but I know I was hitting the weight room. I was getting down. Yeah, I'm going to be bigger. I'm going to be faster, but also be meaner. I will not let you beat me. And it takes me to college. Cycle repeats. I get to college. You can go wherever you want. You got no mom and dad around. You can hang out and party and drink and do your stuff, right? Or you can go, I'm locked in. So come Saturday, there's a mentality of, I've done too much work in the dark. You do not get to beat me in this play, in this game, period. And then it carries in the NFL. And the same thing keeps progressing up, even beyond the game, right? There's a part of what I look at for athletes. It's not the physical. It's what happens between the 2 ears. And I have intimate interaction with this right now. My youngest son, I think he has the ability to be the best athlete in our family. It's period. My oldest son runs track at college. My daughter, she's his twin, same age, 14. And I go, dude, like, you have all the talents. But yesterday we were somewhere and his coach said he reminds her of her sister who had all the talent in the world, but no work ethic. And I got a shot in my heart. His coach said this. And I go, this morning, we have a morning routine we do. I go, dude, that shot me in the heart, man. And it should have for you too. I said, you have the ability to have an amazing life, but if you don't figure out how you make that never be said again, your life is not going to be what it is now, because what you have now is because of who I was back when I was your age. So I'm trying to get them to get this concept, but I think that's the differentiator for a lot of athletes and non-athletes.
Yeah. Well, what I love about sports, and I'm a big sports fan, I've always been coaching my kids. I was explaining, I've got 4 boys and a girl. So I've got, my youngest is 10 now, but I've been coaching them all throughout baseball. And now my oldest son coaches with me, one of his younger brothers. What I love about the sports, though, is it teaches you to think differently. And I know there's lots of ways to be able to have competition, and anymore competition is almost being beat out of us. It's almost, that's a bad thing. But in sports, it's just, you have to be better. So tell me about some of the mentors that you've had in this process. It sounds to me that your son has got a great mentor in this process, someone that sees his talent but wants to get between his ears a little bit more. Tell me about some of the coaches that you've had that have really helped you get that shift up to the higher gear.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part is I can't want more for him than he wants for himself, and none of us can. I could want it all day long. Like this morning, I asked him, I said, "What do you think I want for you?" And I said, "Why do you think I'm on you like I am?" And he goes, "Because you want me to be great." And I go, "No, I don't want you to be great. I want you to give great effort. I want you to want to be great." Like there's separation. And so my coaches, people I had in the past, that was one thing they didn't have to battle. They didn't have to battle my desire to be great. That was one thing that made it easier. Now, they would have to battle me getting, beat up and tired and second guessing myself possibly, but it wasn't a desire in any way to like to take it easy. So I had in high school that they could see certain things in me that I didn't see, because that's what happens. I think when you don't see something, also like I wanted to be great, but I also couldn't see what it looked like really. So you do dumb things and you may, detract from the direction you're trying to go. So I had some good people sit me down and go, "Hey, I see something in you that's more than you see." That coupled with my desire to be great created a new place to go. Like it's like kicking the soccer ball farther out to go right up to it, So I had guys, in college as well. My position coach, Don Pelham, I hated his guts. I think there's something unique about this. Now I'm being serious. I'm not even mincing words. I hated the guy. To know that he was in town in the off season and not out recruiting would make my skin crawl. I wouldn't even leave my house until anyone going to possibly run to him in a grocery store. Now, fast forward, 2 decades almost. When I look back at my life, I am so incredibly thankful for him. As a dad, it's hard to set a line and hold the line. That's what he did for me. The reason it was so difficult, the reason I hated him was he made me have to do things at a great level. He forced me. Like I wanted to be great, but my level of great wasn't what great required based on my dream. And he knew that. So he would push me up to it. And he knew that I wasn't going to quit. So he would just drive me harder. But the more he drove me, the better I got. And I look back at my life and everybody that I've known and the people that I'm sure if I asked you, the people who made me better, I usually hated in the moment. Like, why do I got to do this? Why are you making it so hard? And it may not even have been another person. There's times that I myself have done this to myself. Like, gosh, why are you making yourself get up at 5 a.m. for this? What do you? And the idea is like, that's how we improve. And so when I look back, I had coaches in high school. I had Chris Matthews, Coach George Flores, Coach Anthony was one of my high school coaches, and Don Pelham. Nick Aliotti was my college coach as well. Like, these are the people that helped me become a man. Because I did go into college as a boy. I had a kid my sophomore year who's going to school at Oregon now. And I left a man with a family, And the idea is I would have ruined that family earlier than I did. We'll probably get to my story. But had I not had the skill sets, and I think even then, while they were being built, I wasn't also understanding how to deploy them. So while I had the skill sets, I also wasn't just deploying them properly later in life, but without having the right people around to show you what great looks like, to show you what better looks like, you might inadvertently believe you're doing great and then be faced with a situation that requires you to do more and be unprepared for it.
Well, and to have a kid your sophomore year in college, so you're a kid having a kid, and obviously this boy now is in college as a college athlete at a very impressive collegiate, that Oregon's a big time school for track. I mean, that is Nike sponsored everything, and they huge amount of money. So that's super impressive. Tell me a little bit about that a growing experience of a kid having a kid, and really, what did you learn from it? How did it make you better today?
Yeah, it made me more disciplined, and I like that guy Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about. It's hard to fully realize yourself until there's something and someone vastly more important than your own life. So when I had a kid, I've never been worried about having a kid. I love the idea of it. And me and him were close. He's a great human being. But it was hard, man. And it forced me to have to grow up, not just in the aspect of like working harder, but like the discipline it takes to function in an adult world. I now got to be responsible for this person not dying, and it's me and my fiance at the time, and we're navigating the thing. But here's what my life was like, and most people, this is what I call my dark work in college. I did it in high school, but the dark work I had to do to elevate my identity to achieve that life I wanted and sustain it was every day I'd get up at 6:45. I had class at 7. I'd get to class. And it is the reason I did, because I had a kid, and there's a way that my life had to work, because we'd be at practice by like 2. My high school sweetheart was also my fiance, mother of my son. She was in school at the same school as me. And we had to both get school done with this baby. So I'd go to 7 o'clock classes, usually done around 10:30, 11. I'd get back to the house. We would literally trade places on the bus. Like she'd leave him, I'd get off the bus, I'd run to the house, pass her, give her kids. She'd be on the bus heading to school.
Wow.
I'm in by himself like a minute in the crib, And so we do that. And then I'd be doing homework while she's doing schoolwork. So that whenever she got back around like 2, passing again, I'm out to the facility. I got lifting, I got film, I got training table, I got to be at practice. So I'd be doing all my practice. And then after practice, if I had study hall, I'd go to study hall, So we get done 6 o'clock-ish for practice, go to study hall for an hour. I'm back home by 8. She's been doing her homework. We sit down, have a meal. I'm in bed by, 10, 11, and I'm doing it again and again and again. This is then I have football games, and this is practice, and this
road games. I mean, you guys did a lot of traveling. You're
everything.
Pacific Northwest, and you got to go all throughout the country when you're playing.
All over. Yeah, and so when the season's in, it's hectic. Even when it's not, and you still got to be there, and you got film, and it's still nonstop, because they don't let football players have ample time to themselves. We'll call it,
which is probably a pretty good idea.
Yeah. So that was my lifestyle, and so it developed in me this inherent discipline that I utilize now toward the things that are hard for most people to do. They're hard for me not to do. It's hard for me not to be able to get up and get going and get things organized and structured. It's hard for me not to be responsible, the one you can lean on. It's hard for me not to be transparent and clear and communicative. It's hard for me not to, where some people my age still struggle to be that. And I think they just weren't subjected to an experience that forced them to have to figure that out. I was. And so while it was hard, after a while, it doesn't get hard. Now it's just, this is life. As easy as it was emotionally to have to, get up and go to practice and drive your car, whatever, and just, come home, play video games, like whatever that life felt like, it felt the exact same. I just had more on my plate. Yeah. And even now I have more kids, I have businesses, my wife has businesses, but life isn't super stressful. I may get tired, but it doesn't mean I'm like stressed out and I freak out, right? It's just, that's what life is. And so a lot of people, I believe if they jumped into my life right now, they get through a day and freak out. Whereas for me, I'm like, that's just Monday morning.
Yeah. So, it's, we talked a little bit about the sports recently. And I think it's a question I'd ask for you, because you've played at the highest level of sports. And recently there's this on Netflix, they showed Johnny Manziel, who was able to, skate through high school as a uber athlete. And it's pretty reasonable to say in college, he was just transcendent in what he was able to accomplish, but his personal habits really destroyed him. Once you have all these high achievers, when you get to the NFL, he just wasn't able to maintain this, I guess I would say a very undisciplined lifestyle. Talk a little bit about that in business. Yeah. You see a lot of guys that may be able to excel in the, small times, but once they start to get up, if they don't have the habits, they just can't achieve much.
Yeah, it's Manziel, I don't know him personally, so I never speak to his character, but they portray whatever they do on TV. And I think he didn't have a mentor at the right moment, the right time, to keep him I think on the straight track. There's so many great things he could have accomplished, impact he could have made. And I think they're from what you can see from it, maybe a little bit of trickling regret from what he didn't accomplish, but I don't think it was crazy. But I respect him what he did. You cannot knock that. That dude bald. He did a great job. You can take nothing from anybody in that space. And I make sure I give that like really clear. Sometimes people look at individuals, go, "Oh, they messed up." Yeah, but they got there, right? So don't knock that. They did something world class to get there. You can't take any piece of that. Now, business wise, it's interesting because you can be phenomenal in business and horrible in other things.
That's true.
Right. In sports, you can't be horrible at throwing, be great at running, or you have to be great at almost the collective base to get the job done and be in there. With business, I know some people that they couldn't get themselves out of a paper bag, but they got $1 million because they found some interesting way to make money. And sure enough, they're rocking and rolling. And again, you got to respect what they figured out how to do. But I do know that is not sustainable for a lifetime.
Right.
Most of the people that are doing that I've run into in business that are great now, I'll see them a couple years later. And I had a couple times where they're at their bottom, they lost it all. family's gone, money's gone. I go, what happened? And like, they just, they don't even know what happened. And so what I've realized is like, you can, what they say, broken clocks right twice a day, right? You can luck into some, sometimes you can lock into some stuff, but to sustain, it's a big piece. And this is where I lean on the identity portion, because you can sometimes attain it, but you may not sustain it. But to do both, to live in peace, like you have to have these certain traits. And I believe business is a phenomenal, like microcosm of the earth, like the world will call it, to develop these skill sets, interpersonal connections, how to serve people, how to be selfless, how to be on time, be disciplined. You can do that, but you may do that at a certain level. Let's say all of a sudden you are able to make $100,000 doing some gig, right? Well, what happens is beyond that, the world forces you to have to expand if you want to make more, which means, well, you can't duplicate yourself and clone yourself. So you have to hire people, right? You just wouldn't be able to take on more business unless your business is software, different conversation. But even then you have to get a support team. But if it's a regular business of ones we know, you have to extend yourself out, which means you have to learn skills of not just doing your thing, but teaching someone to do that thing. And so if you want to make more money, you got to hire people. You hire people, right? All of a sudden you hire the wrong people. And there's a cancer in the company. And then you got a bunch of money. And then all of a sudden people are unhappy because your clients aren't getting served the way they were when it was just you doing your thing. And you never developed the skill of interpersonal connections or training a team or management or leadership. And so you can actually expand yourself to death if you don't do it properly. And I think what has to happen is, I'm not sure who said it, but they said you cannot grow a business more than you've grown yourself.
Yeah, you got to. It expands to your leadership level. My son is 17. My middle son is 17. He's a high achiever. He's too big now. It seems crazy. He's retired from gymnastics because he started to grow. But his last meet was in the national competition where he was in the top 100 in the whole U.S. for it. But now he's big into, it really taught him how to excel. And he listens to David Goggins now. So he'll start yelling out the, who's going to carry the boats? Who's going to carry the logs? But I love it because at 17 years old, that's how he attacks everything. And one of the things that concerns me so much, what makes the United States great is that we are achievers. And now it's almost like participation awards have taken over in almost everything that we do. I'm a big baseball guy, and baseball, man, you're a Hall of Famer striking out a lot, and you're successful if you only get a bat, get a hit 2.5 times out of 10. You're considered good now. And I think people have made failure or losing as some kind of terrible thing. Though we all want to win, failure is a part of any kind of success. Talk a little bit about that and just the mentality of how people just are afraid to fail.
You poked me in a funny place. It sickens me what the world turned into in these aspects. I coach a youth football team, man, and I have had parents actually complain to the league that practice was too hard. It blows my mind. It makes my stomach. At one point, I contemplated, like, I'm not going to do this. These people have no idea what they have in me. Like, I'm not just the regular coach that just came off the street and I'm a dad hanging out. Like, I play professional football.
Yeah.
I coach. I consult for Amazon. Like, literally, like So you got a guy who understands psychology and how to coach individuals, who played the highest level in the world, who's trying to teach your kid what it takes to be successful at this game, and you're stopping it because it might be too hard.
Yeah,
I hate it. I hate it. And I think what happens is we're creating this world of weaklings, and it's scary to me. It's really scary because no matter how you want to protect your kid or guard your kid, they're going to face the world, and the world's not going to be nice, man. It's going to be that kid in a dark alley, that kid with his wife, and some guy comes up and says something, he can't protect himself. He loses the wife, because she's like, well, I can't have a life with a guy who can at least protect himself. At least use your words. Like, but these guys are timid. They're keyboard warriors. And it's like this really interesting dynamic of life. And it's because parents are robbing their kids of hardships.
Yeah. I'd agree with that 100%. The hardships are, steel sharpens steel. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. And it is frustrating, especially if you're dealing with youth. My oldest son wrestled when we lived in Las Vegas. We're in Idaho now. And the coach actually got fired for being too aggressive with their conditioning in wrestling. Wrestling is the most aggressive. I mean, it's Mortal Kombat at times, and you're going to get after the coach because he's riding them because they're too lazy. That to me is
And then you wonder why
concerning.
they don't win. Because it's also worse. This is the parents that'll complain that they're not winning games. So like they'll complain that preparation to win, and then complain that they don't win. It's like you can't have me not do what it takes and then get mad. But they don't. The logic escapes them. And it's like the weak are like winning the war. And yeah, man, it's
the weak are winning the war, and that is confounding to me that we're allowing the youth. For example, I know there's lots of conversations, let the kids be who they want to be. But to a certain degree, you are the steward of your children, and you do have to correct your children. And if your children are quitters, and if your children are not willing to step up, it is your responsibility as a parent to put them in front of the right people, put them in front of people that are going to lift them up and make them better. Why is it? So you're in the Pacific Northwest still? Is that?
Well, I'm in California. So
okay,
you're
in California. So you're on the West Coast, and the West Coast is becoming very, very participation award. Let's just say this: the land of participation awards. How in the world then do you get the kids for us to return to a country of achievers rather than a country of accommodators?
It starts at home. 100% has to start at home. Every day, my son and I, my youngest son, we do a morning routine. Now, I'm not saying this is making him an animal, because my son definitively still is. He's soft in some areas. He needs to toughen up, especially for the game of football he wants to play. I love him. Don't get me wrong. I love this kid. There's no question the depth of love I have. It's just the sheer time I put in. However, as a man to a man, if he's I tell him, I said, you're getting to the point where like you're weak and it's timid. And if I was not your father, I wouldn't spend the time with you. I've told him this. And it's not to discount us. So it doesn't mean I don't love you. Like, if we could find anything you want to do, it's great. But I said, you've chosen football. So with football, you're not playing at the level necessary that I know is necessary for your dream you stated you want, not the one I want for you. I played in the NFL. I don't got to live through you, bro. But I said, at a certain point, you tell me you want this, you're going to do this, and you don't do it. And I said, man to man, you're becoming a person that a man like me dislikes over time. And I said, I don't care if you play football. You can go. You want to fish? Let's make you the best fisherman, bro. I'll get you fishing hats and lures. But I want you to understand that my goal is to have you give great effort somewhere. And so it does start at home. So we do this morning routine where every day we take a hike to the top of the hill. It's about 7 minutes up there. We do a whole circle of it's like miles around. You can see. I believe you can probably see 5 miles in each direction, if not more. And then we do a prayer of what we're grateful for the day. We come back down. We do a 48-degree cold plunge, shoulders under. Then we do a meditation for 10 minutes. I tell him I love him, give him a hug, start the day, right? But I spend time with this guy. I'm in his ear every day. I don't let him just get away with things. I hold him to the standard that he has set for himself. He has stated so many times, Dad, I want to play college football. I want to play in the NFL. Great. My wife and I have sat at the table so many nights going, just tell us you don't want to do it. Just tell us you don't, and we'll find something else. He won't do it. So I go, as long as you keep saying that, I have to keep giving you this pressure, because that's what my job is as a dad, because I don't want to parent you in your 40s. And I'm going to have to if I don't do this. So it starts at home. It's how you do it, to where he understands the standard. Then what happens is other kids that are like him, he understands the standard and knows when they don't meet his standard. So those ones get kind of pushed away, because I think there's also a part of, I think Harvard did a study, some 99% of they could track the progression of an individual's time to their immediate group of friends. Like, who you associate with determines your outcomes. So if I don't stand in my home and my son knows what I will and what I'll be okay with, he ain't having friends like those people. Like, they're just not going to come around the house. But in that window, we happen to have randomly friends that are similar, parents that are similar to us. So you create this kind of group or cohort of individuals. And over time, here's the interesting thing about life. And this is the weirdest dynamic, but I share this and I hope it makes sense for folks. People are enamored by the individuals who are high-level athletes, right? They love seeing the guy win and succeed, but they don't understand what it took to win and succeed, or they battle it when they're faced with it, to see this person pushing them real hard. Oh, but they're going to cheer all day for the guy that gets the medal, the guy that's the best in the world. And that guy will tell you straightforward, here's what it took to get there. But when I want to put your kid towards that, you fight me on it? It's craziness. But here's the truth. And I think the parents that are the ones that are okay with their kid being weak and want it to be easy, the parent who will send an email saying practice wasn't fun today. I've got those before. It's crazy to me. Here's what I've realized. They will go on TV, turn it on, and they'll watch their favorite athlete. They'll watch the Kobe Bryant. They'll watch the Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. They'll watch the Serena Williams. But here's they don't comprehend. If you were to go to that person's house and sit down and start having a conversation with them, within the first 20 minutes, they'd realize they don't like you as a human.
Right.
Here's the thing. I'm not saying that you're a bad person. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you will inherently start saying things that will trigger their brain and go, what the hell are you talking about? Because you can't help but talk from a place of timid, of weak, of mediocre. I've seen it happen because they'll say something and they'll be like, let's go get it done. They're like, oh, it's a lot. What do you mean that's a lot? That's what I do. So there's these conversations you're watching little by little, the person that's why they say, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
I don't think about not being your heroes because a hero's a punk. No, it's don't meet your hero because your hero is your hero because he's not you. She's not you. And it's clear why they're not. So if you go hang out with them, you start talking how you talk, you're going to realize pretty quickly they don't like you. Doesn't mean you're not a good person, but people that are at a high world-class level, they don't spend time or like to be around people that don't have an aspiration to be there or are there. And don't get me wrong, I have the same thing for me. There are probably rooms that if I got into right now, they'd be like, get this dude out of here. Yeah. Right? That's just the nature of the beast of the world we live in. If I walked into a room of billionaires, the Musks, the Gates of the world, they're not going to entertain my conversation because I don't think I can have an operational flow at that level. But that's an okay acceptance. Most people aren't okay with that. They want the participation trophy. I don't want to do what you did, but I want to have what you have. And that is unacceptable.
And I think that, that I didn't appreciate Jordan. So I grew up watching Jordan play. I'm about the same age as Kobe Bryant, and I didn't appreciate how hard they worked. And I read the books Winning and Relentless by both Jordan and Kobe's trainers. Both of those guys were the hardest working people on their team. And in the NBA, it's pretty hard to be a slacker. I mean, it's pretty hard. And he talked about both of their relentless drive, and with Jordan and with Kobe, how they would, Kobe, there's the famous thing of the Olympics when he knocked down his teammate from the Lakers just to set a point, Paul Gasol at the beginning, just to set a tone for the rest of the team. And I think you're right. Winning requires a commitment that most people simply won't give. And I don't think my concern is with very few people are going to be Jordan. Almost nobody's going to be Bryant, just that mentality that those guys have. I think the concern that we have is just a group of achievers that we want our kids to have some success. We want our kids to be able to be in a world that isn't full of participation awards. And that trend, it kind of cracked me up when you're talking. It made me think of my nephew's team name for soccer in California. It was the King Thunder Sharks. Why the King Thunder Sharks? Because one kid wanted the Kings, one kid wanted the Thunder, and the other kid wanted the Sharks. So rather than the coach doing some kind of vote and making some kid feel bad, they were the King Thunder Sharks. That's where we're heading. And at what point do the parents start to come together and say, you know what, life isn't easy. Life kicks your butt. Life will knock you to your knees if you let it. We can't let our kid be soft. And I think it starts, as you said, in the home.
It does, but parents aren't willing to do that, man, because then parents have to admit they're not great. No parent wants to do that. It's crazy. That's why, for me, there's certain, there's people that aren't even, they're just like parents on my kid's team that I probably wouldn't want to hang out with. To be serious. And it sucks because we have to. We're forced to, right? And we live in, I think, two different kind of countries. If you're talking about America, I think we live in one America, which is you should earn and work hard to earn. I don't care how hard it is, what setbacks you have the ability to work. I grew up in foster care. I was given away at 3 years old, man. I grew up as the only black kid in an all-white family. I didn't have any leg up. I didn't even fit in anywhere. Yet I found something, which was a work ethic and a drive. And I found that, yes, I was faced with situations where I was 100% behind the ball. Was it fair oftentimes? Absolutely not. But I'm aware that it wasn't fair. I go, well, it's not fair. I can complain about it not being fair and still be stuck in this crappy existence, or I can do the work necessary to climb out of this hole and even surpass those who were in front of me. It's kind of like running a race. Just because you start the race behind doesn't mean you can't finish the race in front. You see videos all the time. There's a video of a girl in a hurdle. She gets out of the blocks, stumbles over the hurdle, gets up and beats everybody else. Right? And I go, that could be life. But then there are a lot of parents who, they don't want it to be the case, man. They want to have a really good excuse and sit there and complain and be pissy about how life is and the rules should be changed. And The rules are the rules. You're not going to change the rules. You could try, but you may give a lifetime to doing that. Or what you really want, you want peace and joy and happiness. You want some modicum of success in your life. You're going to have to work your tail off to get it. You can't complain your tail off to get it.
You have a spectacular story, and I really encourage people to check out what you're doing. You have a tremendous career. I can't even think about what it would be like to, at the age of 3, to start bouncing around. My home was so stable growing up, and I had a father that was a high achiever. And in the profession of law, he made about as high as you can get without being on the U.S. Supreme Court. And he was never soft on us. He was never. It gave me such an advantage to have parents that held me accountable. It gave me such an advantage to have my dad sit me down and grill me the same way he would a witness on the stand if I were underperforming. That was a blessing. And I'm super impressed what you've achieved and the mindset that you have, having bounced around from families all growing up. Tell me, just give me kind of an idea as we finish up of how do you personally, when you're on, it doesn't matter whether it's in your book, it doesn't matter if you're speaking in front of an audience. Give me just your elevator pitch of your life and how it transformed your ability to shift people's success.
Yeah, well, I believe you should not tell anyone how to run the race until you've crossed the finish line. And so for me, I ran a lot of races, and I've crossed a lot of finish lines, and so I can tell you how to run a race up to the point I've crossed the finish line. There's a bunch I haven't crossed, right? But that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to say I was once where you were, and this is where you can come, and I'll show you how to get here. But in my life, I've loved this simple statement. I have a tattoo of it on my arm. I have a picture on my wall, and it says, "Smooth seas never made skilled sailors."
Interesting.
And so what I've looked at is, while I grew up in life, but I had people, I was beaten and starved and tortured and put in shopping carts and pushed down hills and forced to lick people's shoes, and made to chase chickens to earn meals. Like, this is all before I was 6 years old. So like, a lot of my life was very heinous and unhappy. I didn't have a sense of home, and so my formative years were the worst of my life. And I think there's a lot of things to be said about how that can turn you to be a horrible human being, because I get it. Like, if you look at any prison in America, 75% of the inmates are former foster kids like me. And it's not by accident. And I think I get the logic of it, which is, well, the world did this to me, I'm gonna get my retribution. So we go out as foster kids, we rob, we steal, we lie, we do things because it's retribution. It's an anger that we aren't taught how to process, and we weren't loved at a way to understand how to love. And so I get it. But then what happens is, you can also be one of the 25% that isn't in prison. And you can also be one of the 1% that does something amazing. That's the 1% of the actual world, not just the foster care statistic. And the way that I think it happens is where I've kind of, like, for me in this world of speaking, I'm the top 1% financially of speakers in the world. And it's not an accident. And the way that I frame it is, those smooth seas that most people have as a kid, when they get to older parts of life and they're out there rough seas, they don't know how to navigate them. They never were taught as kids. And so they're now learning how to do it with vastly more responsibility. They got a husband, they got a wife, they got a job, a business, a career. And then they hit the storms. They go, how do I handle this? And all of a sudden they fall apart, and the boat flies apart. For me, I was beaten up on the seas of life early. So I learned how to navigate, how to communicate, how to do these things, to where, as an adult now, when the seas get rough, I go, oh, I've had it worse. I got this. And so it allows me to keep stepping into a space where most people would shut down. I just keep trudging along. And so some people shut down for a lifetime. They turn to drugs or drinking or partying, and they get stuck in some loops they can't get out of for a lifetime. Whereas for me, I go, okay, this sucks. Breathe it out. I'm there for a week, and I'm on to the next thing. So the more steps I take, the more, we'll call it gap I open up between me and where that person is, or where I would or could have been. And so to get to the 1% of like where I'm at now, it was simply when I was faced with the exact same moments somebody else was faced with, I had a different wiring of my identity that allowed me to push past. This is why I talk the idea of shifting, why it's so inherent in me. I could rattle off probably about 30 different life moments that were shifts that have and would shut so many people down for a lifetime. I've gone through, I've navigated, and I've pushed through, which is why I believe I can talk to these areas. And I had to codify it for myself and go, why is that? Which is what I now teach. But the reality is where I'm at now is simply because of life's experiences and what I pushed myself into doing, but give me more experiences, right? The more you build, the more you grow, the more I have these things that wire me neurologically and psychologically different than most. So my identity is raised to a level that I can attain the goal I want and sustain it. And really the end destination, I tell everybody, is you want to have this, what I call a dominator's identity. Now, dominator, it's not this like football thing. People go, it's rough and rugged. I go, really what it means is to be in control of and to govern. That's what it means to dominate something.
Right.
So you can dominate your meditation routine, right? You just have to be in control and to govern. But what happens is when I'm in control and I govern any situation that comes my way, I can meet that with the right identity to overcome it. And most of the time, it's because I've done what's called that dark work. The work in the dark that nobody saw, that's hard and it's relentless and it's misunderstood and ridiculed, but it allows me to shine in the light. So I show up to those moments. What everybody else has, my mentality is different. It is, I have done too much work in the dark to lose in the light. And it has me bring something else out of me that most people can't bring out because they didn't do the dark work. And I can succeed. It's just a matter of really leaning into the moments, not wait until some moment later, but doing it now, subjecting yourself to pain now, leaning into the pain now with the intention of just doing it because it's hard so that you have this hardened sense of self. That's what Goggins does. What you were talking about a moment ago. Goggins is the same mentality. I don't know if he'd say the same words because it's kind of different, but essentially he does the work every day. He's hardened to where when he shows up to the world, he's like, mother effer, like I've done too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what you build. It is not impossible to become him. You just have to do what he has done to get there.
Yeah, I think he'd say the same way. I think he'd just use a more R-rated version of it. But
More, yeah.
You're right on. Anthony, tell people where to find you because, like I say, we met on Instagram, and you've got a lot of people following you. You've got a lot of different places that you speak. Tell people where to find you.
Yeah. Best place is Instagram, where you found me, man. At Anthony Trucks. We have the Dark Work brand launching, which is, it's a subsidiary of me. It is not Anthony Trucks. It's born of me, but I want it to be a brand where people can pass the torch without having to connect to the man. So it's a message, it's a concept, it's its own thing. But you start the journey with me at Anthony Trucks on Instagram.
Well, I enjoyed this a lot. I love the idea of a winning mentality more than anything. As a father of 5, man, I just want my kids to be responsible for their failures, responsible for their successes, and not think that somebody's going to give it to them because the world does not give you anything, man. And so appreciate what you've said. It's great to have you on here.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care.